Hey,
Oh,
looks like Bill's in San Francisco.
I'm close. 100 miles.
One day I'm going to become as computer literate as you, Bill, and figure out how to do the background thing.
It just asked me if I wanted a background.
Oh,
And then it's like all these types of backgrounds, so I just clicked on this.
oh, that's cool.
Susan, I need to sit down with you and help you on that one. It's really easy.
Yeah. I've got the raise hand thing down. Is that Jill? Like, as in Jill Delmont down there? She's got her microphone on mute.
Yeah, they just got here. I was just visiting with them.
They're back? Oh, wow.
Yes.
Okay, welcome back.
Hello all.
Who was that? Oh,
This is
PH.
Brian. Yeah, it's Brian. I'm logging in as the PH board. Richard will be joining us himself. Let's see. I see Jeff. I see Jill, Arlene. Good. Thank you for joining, Carlos. Okay.
Carlos might be muted.
Yeah, and he may still be getting connected. Here's Richard. There's Guy. Nice to see you.
Good afternoon.
Glad you joined. Uh, let's give everyone another couple minutes. Toward the end of the day, everybody's schedule is dragging. Hey, Carlos.
Hey,
We're going camera.
Well, while we're waiting for everyone, I'd like to say thank you to Brian for arranging this. It's nice to see Carlos again. I would like to ask that the person, who I'm not going to name, not use profanity as was used on yesterday's call against me, but I still appreciate very much the opportunity to have these discussions, even though it gets a little heated at times.
We are going to try to keep this kind of on the rails, Susan. Today we've got only 30 minutes of Carlos's time, so we're going to try to keep it tightly focused on this case and on the potential settlement with OGI. And Carlos is prepared to weigh in on that. We've had extensive meetings with him as well. We now have 12 people. I want to give everybody one more minute, and we'll start at 5 minutes after the hour. And we'll just try to keep this tightly focused and be respectful of everybody's time.
Okay. How you all doing that?
Okay, we've got someone who's trying to get in yet. Now I'm going to try to paste the link in for him real quick. Hang on. Let's see.
Surely I don't need to have my picture shown, but all it gives me is a choice of blur or brightness. It doesn't say off.
I know it didn't give me a choice either.
Oh, so
Maybe
You should.
you want it high
You should have
definition.
I'm sorry. You should have a camera icon in the top right-hand corner.
yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
there's an icon.
there's a hang up.
Push on it.
There's a leave button.
Nope.
Yeah. Push.
Not on mine. It's backgrounds,
Well, if
brightness.
you like, I think I can shut your camera off if you want. If you're not wanting to be paraded around, I can shut it off for you, Susan.
I don't. Yeah, I just thought it was weird
Let me
that
see.
everyone else's was off
There.
and mine was still on.
Now, let me see if I can turn it back on the same way.
Me
Allow
on.
camera. There we go. There we go. Okay. Yeah, it's working.
Oh, maybe if I click this button. Let me just try that. Nope. Interesting.
Yeah, it should shut off for you. But
No.
at any rate, I want to get rolling here. We've got as much of a quorum I think as we're going to get. I want to thank Carlos for joining. We've discussed this issue a little bit, and I'm going to turn it straight over to him and have him give you an update on the court case and everything around that, and then touch on the potential negotiation with OGI on the settlement. Take it away,
Okay,
Carlos.
thank you. Right now, the case against OGI, it's on its way to the Supreme Court of Panama to be reviewed by the first chamber of the Supreme Court. We found review the case, and the goal is to revoke to annul the first two of the court rulings that were against the PH. That's the bottom line of the situation. If you have any questions about the case or about where we're going, I'm open to anyone.
Now, Carlos, can you explain the rules of evidence in the Supreme Court case and what that means, and the potential or the likelihood of being referred back to the lower courts and those kinds of things?
Okay, let's just get back a little bit with the case. The situation with this case is that the OGI filed against the PH for certain invoices that supposedly were unpaid. Those invoices, yes.
Can I ask who was the attorney who filed that case?
I don't remember the name, something Italian. I'm going to
Giancarlo.
and I'll get back to you. Giancarlo.
Yeah, Giancarlo
Yeah,
Diaz.
Giancarlo Diaz, and a lawyer. Was that he was the first lawyer to answer the claim.
Thank you.
I took the case once the first court ruling was being notified, and we were the first ones to know exactly what happened on the first court ruling. Okay, so yeah, OGI filed this case with a lot of invoices that, in my perspective as a professional, weren't up to what the law states that it should be taken as proof. The problem here was the first lawyer didn't do his job and didn't file any proof or even present himself into the court when he was supposed to go to review the evidence, and he didn't file his allegations at the end of the process. Once we review the case, we decide that it was it was in the best interest of DPH to appeal that court ruling because of the situation with the evidence. Sadly, the Superior Court of David made a decision that didn't have any bit of sense. I didn't like the court ruling, not because it wasn't against what I was asking for, but it didn't make any sense whatsoever about what we were asking and what was the evidence in the case. That's why we were approved to file the second resource that is called casación. With this resource, what we're going to ask what we're asking to the first chamber of the Supreme Court is to review the decision of the first two courts in regards of the evidence. That this evidence that was provided and was studied by the courts was not evaluated in the correct way, that it violates the law about how the proper procedure to evaluate evidence and how the court can take into consideration to emit the final ruling. In my consideration professionally, OGI didn't prove that those invoices were unpaid because they only present a simple copy of them. There was no receipt from the PH or from the president or anybody. There was no one email that says that those invoices were delivered. Now, if you're going to have any success rate in the Supreme Court, that's going to be that's not 100%. I can't guarantee you that the Supreme Court or the First Chamber is going to revoke that court ruling. You might have a very good chance of that, but it's not an absolute.
What percent would you say if you could put a percent on it?
Right now, with the situation as it is, I could say a 60%, 70% of getting a favorable court ruling, but that's still a coin flip.
Okay.
And how the situation is, it's still a coin flip. I would recommend going with it, but if they made you an offer that the PH can actually take care of, that's something that you as an HOA must take into consideration.
Yeah.
What is the time duration? What kinds of lead times are we talking? How many more steps would this take?
Okay, the case should be arriving in the court maybe next week, and after that, they have to admit it, they have to review it, and they will have to the First Chamber have to pronounce if we need to amend the research, or they're going to just let it go like it is. Once that happens, if that happens, then the other party is going to have 3 days to file its considerations, and we're going to have 3 more days to review those considerations. After that, the First Chamber can take from 3 months to maybe 4, 5 months into making a decision. Once that decision is into effect, it's going to be very hard to file another research. Maybe we can try a constitutional process and try to revoke that sentence, but we're going to have to study that once we have the ruling of the First Chamber of the Supreme Court.
What does it mean to file a research? I mean, so like if I could provide you with, and I'm not sure that you had all the evidence, but we obviously have documentation where we sent notices to OGI and said, no, that's not right. We don't agree to that bill, cease and desist. Are you saying that that's not additional research?
No, that's the problem, because once you pass the first probatory period, you can't provide any more evidence in the case. There's ways to provide evidence to the court in the second instance when you appeal, but those the kind of evidence that you can provide is very limited. You can ask a government office for some information, or you can ask for some evidence that you filed and the court didn't admit in the first instance. In this case, Giancarlo didn't file anything, so I didn't have anything to work with in the appeal nor in cassation. We can only work with the evidence that OGI provided.
And the same for them. They cannot add anything to it either.
No,
so basically it comes down to they sent us a bill, they don't have a signature, they don't have a contract.
It's even worse than that. We're fighting against a court ruling that takes into consideration some evidence that I believe that it's illegal. And we're working here on a purely in a purely study of the law. We're not reviewing the evidence as evidence, but if it's legal or not to be used in the case. So we're just fighting with words here. We're not fighting with evidence.
Yeah.
It's more like an academic case than a practical case, if that can work in a translation somehow.
Right. And what we heard on the call yesterday was, well, you explain this. There's the amount that they say we owe is like over $300,000. I think $340,000. We've heard different numbers from the board saying like maybe they think they could get it down to $150,000. We've heard other numbers, and again, you can clear this up. That there's a maximum amount that they can seize, which is that 20% of our assets. We've heard that Law 47 or Article 47 of Law 284, it says you can, because we're a PH. So,
sorry, I interrupt you. Just so to clarify, it's not 20% of the assets, but 20% of the income from the maintenance.
so explain that a little more, if you don't mind.
Okay, the law establishes that you can't hold in a cease order more than 20% of the income of the PH.
The current year's income or all of our assets, or how would that be calculated?
That's going to depend in the court and how they request it and how we're going to fight it back if we get to that, because the law only establishes that 20% of the income. It can be monthly, it can be yearly. It's going to depend on the court and the interpretation of the law.
Now, Carlos, it's my understanding that the initial judge ordered a seizure of 100% of the PH's assets, and that's not in accordance with the law.
Yes.
Has that been overturned? Has that been undone?
No, that hasn't
So
been done.
we
No, it was 120.
we have a lot of risk here.
No, it said the most in that decision. It said the most they could seize or freeze was 120,000, which is what those two amounts add up to, the 37,000 in the global bank plus the other 40 or so that Tucasa has frozen, which adds up to exactly 120,000, because they said in that decision the most that we can legally ask for is 120. So that's what's frozen right now.
From what I remember, that was the amount that they were able to seize, because that was the amount that was in the bank account, because they request another letter from the court to deliver to other banks, trying to seize more money.
Yeah, they got the 37,000 already frozen in Global Bank. Then they sent the letter to Tucasa and said, Tucasa, do you understand that you need to, basically freeze this money? And Tucasa sent that letter, which you told them to send, that says, yes, we understand. And so those two amounts add up to 120,000, which was the number in that initial. And I haven't seen anything else that says anything more than 120 is frozen, or subject to seizure, I guess would be the right word.
Yeah, but that's way up, way higher than the amount than the 20% of what they're asking.
Correct.
So maybe the seize order was just for 120%, and they're trying to seize 120%.
Right.
Yep.
So even if you ask for $500,000, you can ask for a seize order of $100,000. It doesn't have to be in the same value, one on the other. Right. Right.
So, in summary, you'd recommend that we proceed. It doesn't sound like we're talking years or anything like that.
Okay.
I mean, we're talking weeks, right?
My recommendation is that you should do what the HOA thinks is best for the PH. If you ask my professional opinion, you have a good case. There's a chance that it can be revoked in the Supreme Court, but sometimes this decision must be taken into consideration what the other party is asking for. And if they're willing to go lower than 50% of the total amount, maybe you should take that into consideration. Because right now it's a coin flip. Maybe you can negotiate some terms that are comfortable for both parties, and you have to take also into consideration that they owe the PH $100,000. So we got to work with that.
And with regards to that $194,000 that they owe the PH, there can be no credits or debits or any kind of crazy stuff like that, right?
No, it has to be paid in full. That's one of the contingencies that we're seeking to do.
So how would that work, Carlos? Would they have to pay us first? Would we have to pay them first? How would that work? Because obviously the fear is if we were to settle and pay them, $150,000, they'd turn right around and not pay the $94,000.
Okay, we will have to look for a formula to make that work, but the PA can't grant that as a credit for OGI. They can't use that as leverage because it will be illegal.
And I guess the only other thing that and this is, you can tell us your opinion on this, but right before you were getting ready to do the appeal in Changanola, OGI kind of pulled out all the stops and did absolutely everything and I won't go into all the details, but there were like 5 things that they did, in order to try to stop us from going ahead with that appeal. And it would appear that once again they are very much afraid that we are going to take this to the Supreme Court, and that they are pushing really hard for us to go to settlement. So that to me indicates that they fear this going to the Supreme Court, or well, they fear the result of the Supreme Court. It's already at the Supreme Court,
Yes.
I guess.
They might be afraid that this goes to the Supreme Court because, like I told, it's a flimsy case with the evidence that was provided. But I can't guarantee anything with the judges in the Supreme Chamber. They might dismiss the case just because
So,
that's their faculties as judges. There's no one above them that I can go against.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
so
board
Carlos,
said something
basically
yesterday. Sorry.
Hang
Sorry.
on a second, Susan. Hang on. So what you're saying is that in general, an attorney needs to apprise their client of the risks, and we need to understand the risks. There are risks for OGI. There are risks for us. There's delay. There is growth in the amount of money that could potentially be paid out, and that in the best case scenario, you should always settle out of court, because when we get in court, only the lawyers win, and the risk is not reduced for either side. So both of us should be nervous about the Supreme Court case.
Right now, I will say that yes, because you don't have a strong case for what happened in the first instance. If this was another situation where you were able to provide evidence, to provide witnesses, to make a full case, maybe that 60% will be higher if we get to the Supreme Court. Maybe we will not be in this situation, and OGI will be the one that was going to the first chamber of the Supreme Court. But
So what happens if the case is just dismissed and we have to pay? Can we create a payment plan? Would the court order us to raise fees to cover it? Would they order a special assessment?
no, the court is not going to be. It doesn't have faculties to order you to increase the amount of your incomes as a PH, in the maintenance fee at least. The only thing that the court is going to do is provide cease orders to the banks and to maybe the owners.
If we were paying $2,400 a month for dues in, in a year annually, that's some $150,000, and 20% of that would be $30,000, Carlos. So theoretically, they can only take 20% of that annual dues. Is that correct?
That should be what should happen. But I can't guarantee that until it happens. Because, and I'm going to be very honest with you guys, once you cross Santiago and go to Chiriquí and Bocas, laws don't apply like they do here in Panama. Some judges have some very weird criteria at the end of the day. You can ask any lawyer from Panama. It's very different. So I could not give you a 100% assessment, not even a 90% assessment about how the court is going to take this situation into consideration. I don't think that court, specifically in Bocas, had any case with such amount of money.
An additional question I have, if we were to settle with them and obviously provide them with a check at 8 times certain, I would expect the cashier's check. Could we not also request and require that they have a cashier's check in return for the dues upon that transaction?
That should be part of the transaction.
It would have to be some sort of escrow account or something where we both put money in and then both withdraw money or something like that.
We need to look for a formula, but both parties should pay each other. That's the bottom line of this. So OGI must pay their dues as homeowners because they have 10 villas.
and they have to pay that. The law establishes specifically that the board of directors can't give credit nor pardon any of those debts.
And just, this is unrelated, and they can't waive late fees, correct? Can you please state
No,
that?
nothing.
Okay.
Nothing.
Right. Sid, Bill, were you raising your hand to speak?
Susan just answered my question.
Oh, okay.
I was asking the same question she was going to ask. They can't waive the penalty is what I'm getting at.
No, they can't waive anything. If they are late in their payments and there is a penalty, the penalty must be paid. They can have an arrangement with the PH about how they're going to pay that $100,000, but the money must be paid in full.
Right. They can have a payment plan. They can arrange a payment plan, which Tucasa has offered to any of the owners who are past due. But I only mention that because yesterday on the call, I thought I heard, or no, maybe it wasn't on the call, it was in an email where they thought about trying to get some owners current by waiving the late fees, and we keep repeating back, no, you can't do that. And so you
No. We've come to that conclusion that that's not an option, and that was geared to the low dollar, the neighbors, right? The folks. One of the conversations we've had, Tucasa is sending out invoices the week that they're due on the quarterly invoices, and I asked.
Oh, okay, we can have that. That's great. We're there.
In that kind of position. So,
Let's not spend Carlos's time on it. One other question for Carlos. So we talked about settlements. What happens in the event of a Supreme Court win? I mean, tell us what that would look like. I mean,
if we reach a settlement, this is how things are going to work. I'm not going to stop this case until we reach an agreement. If we sign an agreement and the case has not been decided, then I will just withdraw the research. Okay? If we don't get to an agreement and get a court ruling, then that's it. If we get to an agreement and we get a court ruling, then we will have to do what the agreement says.
and the board mentioned something about, and I didn't understand this. They said that if there's something about it being kicked back to some lower level court, and I didn't understand how that could happen. I mean, the Supreme Court is the Supreme Court, is it not?
Yes, but they can decide to dismiss the case or they can decide to change the court ruling.
But it doesn't ever come back to a lower level court.
Yeah, it's going back to the low level courts for its execution.
Okay, but it's not like the lower level court then gets to overrule whatever the Supreme
No.
Court. Oh no, okay.
No. No one can overrule what the Supreme Court stated.
So the Supreme Court says the PH does not have to pay the money. That's it. Done.
That's it. That's the final court ruling, and that's what must be executed.
How long would it take to execute that once that decision comes down? Either
Once
way.
the decision comes down, it might take some time to get to Bocas because it has to go the full trail. It has to go from the Supreme Court in Panama to the Superior Court in David, and then the court in David is going to fix a notice in the court saying that the case just get there. And after that, they're going to have to send it to Bocas. Once it reaches Bocas, then they put a non-notice there for 5 days saying that the case just arrived, and then we'll have to take into consideration what the Supreme Court decides. If it decides to revoke the case and file it, then the case is dismissed. And maybe there's going to be a court ruling against OGI that they have to pay legal costs. If the Supreme Court just dismisses the case or don't like or research, then OGI must continue with their case and execute what it says.
Can the
Let
Supreme
me ask,
Court
who is
determine?
representing OGI regarding this case?
Sorry?
Who is what attorney and who is representing OGI regarding this case?
I believe it's Ricardo Fuller, right, Carlos?
Yes, Fuller is one of those names. There are other names. There's like two names. One is Fuller. I don't remember the exact name.
I only
To be
remember
very honest with you, I usually don't remember.
Right. So the middleman for the negotiation here has been Isla Resort Services, and we are working with Carlos to advise us on negotiating through Isla Resort Services. Now, Isla has offered to guarantee the payments back and forth. Now, Susan mentioned an escrow. I don't know that we talked about a formal escrow, but that's a potential. And we just haven't gotten to those details yet. So, Guy, that's kind of where we're at. We're proceeding.
I am a little offended to the extent that Irwin, representing IRS, is a part of this conversation and this meeting. I mean, how can he be independent in regards to trying to negotiate?
So Irwin, I don't think is negotiating on their behalf. He's going back to OGI, and they are formulating their own strategy, as we are with Carlos. So it's not that he's putting his thumb on the scale, Guy. It's that he's just the middleman going back and forth. Now, I know that the initial payments of the dues and everything, and the late fees and all of that, in our discussions, we've been asking for that to be paid first, and we were asking Isla to guarantee that. So even if OGI stiffed us on those, Isla would absorb that, and Irwin has accepted that responsibility. And so I guess in a way he is. He's kind of being escrow, but yes, he's not acting as their attorney or our attorney.
Well, I guess I am very, concerned and in favor of Carlos suggesting and or involved with some negotiations so that we can get across our positive aspects.
Yes, and we've asked Carlos to help us, in evaluating the quality of the deal. The interest is accruing monthly, right? We want to make sure that we keep up with the exact numbers. So 50% one day is different 50% next month. So and the approach is, the strategies we're relying on Carlos to help guide us and make sure that we're not getting a foul. So. Guy, your concerns are heard and well founded, and we understand. We're trying to do our best.
Thank you.
So what are we willing to accept?
That's a question that should be answered by the HOA.
And by that you mean the Assembly of Owners meeting?
Yes. Tomorrow you have the best case scenario to try and talk about this, because the decision should not be of the board of directors, neither the lawyer. It should be the homeowner, the one that decides what they want to do with the case. If you have the opportunity like this one, it's not every time that you have a homeowners meeting that collides with a decision like this one.
Yeah, I would say that at one point, I think maybe because they were trying to. I guess they wanted to get their votes in time before the annual meeting, the previous meeting. They offered some really low amount. What was it, like $35,000, $60,000, something like that? I can't.
It was like $65,000 last year, right?
What was it? Does anyone remember?
Does anyone on the call remember?
I could look it up.
Rich, do you remember what it was last year? 62,005. 65.
It's somewhere in an email.
And
so basically, guys, it was 65,000 last year when we weren't given the opportunity to vote on it. And in March of 25, they wrote a letter to the previous board offering $125,000, and that was not agreed upon. So now we're negotiating out of the $360,000 to include interest thus far. We've gotten it down to less than $200,000, and if we don't agree to that, then it's only going to continue to go up from there. So I mean, listen, I'm not here to tell everybody. I'm just here to vote, and I mean, so if you guys as a PH decide not to vote for it, then so be it. We let it ride, and we hope that it comes out in our favor. And if it doesn't, then we deal with it then. But I have a feeling the numbers are going to continue to rise between the interest and everything else. My personal feeling is that 360 is only going to continue to go up, and the Supreme Court may cut it in half, and at that point, if we might be back to the 200 number, we don't know.
I will say that when the offer was made for the 65, it included waiving the OGI fees. So please don't rake the old board over for not accepting that offer. That was just not something we were willing to do.
And all the numbers include that, Susan.
I'm just saying, if you go back to that email.
Just to clarify something, my opinion on this situation, if I was the lawyer in the first offer and the case was still new, I will say I'm not going to negotiate with OGI. That's it. If the case that they presented was the one that they wanted to have a negotiator, I would say that it was a good call just to not negotiate. The reason why right now negotiating might be a best case scenario is for the risk of getting a $400,000 bill at the end of the day, just like Richard had stated. But again, this thing changes from year to year, from month to month, depending on the situation that you were in. Right now, you're not in the position that you were when the first time you were served on the case, nor we are in the position of the first court ruling. So it should wait until tomorrow with the full HOA, and just like Richard said, if the HOA decides that they don't want to negotiate and write this through, then whatever happens with the Supreme Court. And you feel that you as homeowner association should negotiate and get a deal with OGI, then that's what you should do. But we should not look into the past about what happened before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's all about the risk and the likelihoods, right? We're looking at the percentages and the outcomes.
Look at it as a commercial decision. Sorry to interrupt again, but this is what I tell all my clients. Look at it as a commercial decision. What's the best case scenario for you, even if you lose?
My understanding here is that, okay, the rule is 20% of the income, okay? So the best scenario, if we lost, would apparently be $30,000 a year. Is that correct, Carlos?
It should be. I don't know how the court is going to handle it.
Yeah. So, I mean, even if they were trying to punish us or something, it maybe would be twice, or God forbid.
I don't know. I don't trust that court. I don't trust Boca's court system as a whole. I don't feel comfortable after the rulings I have seen.
So if the decision is accruing interest, when does the interest stop?
Once they
at the
ask
end of
for the execution of the court ruling. And that it's going to happen after the court ruling gets back to the Boca's court.
But if the Supreme Court votes in our favor, then there's no interest, obviously. And
no,
right.
There's going to be a court ruling against maybe there's going to be a court ruling against OGI, and OGI is going to be condemned to pay for some court costs.
But the interest would be waived if we won outright.
Everything will be waived because the court is going to say that you don't have to pay money.
Right. The outcome, if we lose, though, is that the interest accrued up until the point that the case is executed.
Yes,
and
it's
now
10% annually.
Now the case was initiated in January of 24, right? And we've been accruing interest ever since at about $2,100, $2,200 a month.
Mm-hmm. Okay, 10% each year.
Right. So we take 10% of the total each year. We should check that. So in terms of our costs with you, Carlos, I take it we've paid you for your work so far. Are we going to incur any additional costs for your work?
No, right now no. I talked to the board, the last invoice that I sent for $5,000 was for the resource in the Supreme Court, and if I have to negotiate with OGI, if we have to work this case, that's going to be included in that invoice because it's part of the whole case. If there's anything else that I have to do, then
But to answer your question, Susan, no, we have not paid him.
We've not paid him the second invoice, but we still owe him $5,000. So that invoice is still outstanding.
Well, I guess we should pay him.
Yes, we should.
I'm pretty sure in due time you will pay. I'm pretty sure in due time you will pay.
And after tomorrow, when we have a budget that's approved, then we can offer to pay him.
Right.
Or you could pay him without it.
Yeah,
And I don't quite understand this whole Irwin intermediary thing, because if Carlos is negotiating with OGI, isn't it cleaner for Carlos to negotiate with OGI than Carlos to negotiate with Irwin, who negotiates with OGI?
I still haven't get involved in negotiations. This is just, but before we get to that, we need to hear the HOA. And after that, I remember telling Brian and Richard that I will negotiate on behalf of the PH as a lawyer of the case. So the board of directors nor the HOA, it's alone in this.
All right.
But going back to what we said at the town hall meetings was, hey, we're just asking you for permission to allow us to negotiate if you want to. Then we can bring Carlos in. But I'm not going to waste Carlos's time in trying to negotiate if as a board or as members, if our members say no, they don't want to.
Right. And to your point yesterday, or a couple of people's points yesterday, is I think that was actually Jeff Citron, is if you come up with a number that's not offensive to people, you'll probably get a yes. But if you come up, if you propose a number that's just offensive, then you're going to get a no. So I would suggest that whatever number it is that you put out there, you think about that. And of course, obviously, you don't want to put out a number and everyone just picks the lowest number, and then it's not going to be enough. So I mean, I pity you in trying to figure out what that magic number is. But good luck with that.
So that magic number, it might be easier to get it if you look at it this way. Maybe you will just receive an offer, or well, not just, but you have received an offer from OGI, what their number is. You should provide that number to the HOA meeting and then decide which is going to be that number. It should not be that hard to say, okay, let's go, I don't know, $20,000-$30,000 below that and some conditions. And you need to also give some leeway to the board of directors to negotiate. It can't be something strict. You need to give some maneuverability for the negotiate. Where's going to be your top number? What's going to be your bottom number?
But the real problem with that is, of course, the very person that they're negotiating will be on the call, because the person we're negotiating, or the entity we're negotiating to settle with, is OGI, who will be on the very call. So by giving them leeway, OGI now knows exactly our hand of cards. So how does that work?
Yeah, that's a crazy situation you have right now. I totally understand it, but I really don't know what will the answer be in that regard, because we can't ask OGI to leave the meeting because they're owners, and we can't just discuss that so openly. Like you said, it's going to leave all your cards in the open. So
that's another reason to not have a fixed number.
That might be the correct answer. Not having a number and just getting approval for negotiating in the best case scenario and best terms that there is.
Well, I think negotiations is a great idea if we could resolve it, but ultimately it should be the number that we're worried about.
Yeah.
Yes.
It is, and you know, we also have a window of opportunity, and this annual meeting and the Supreme Court case and everything is kind of lined up to give us a window so that we can get this done. If we, and you know, Richard and I and even Carlos, we've discussed, you know, if we drag this out, or we banter back and forth too many times, you know, Susan, you mentioned an offensive number, right? If we start throwing ugly numbers at each other and we can't get anywhere, at some point, OGI can just cross their arms and wait. And I don't know how confident they feel in the case. I know that we don't feel 100% confident in the case. Guy's point is right on. A good or a decent settlement is better than a risky pipe dream, right? So
Yes.
if we have something good on the table, we should probably be able to strike while we still have some good graces. We still have a little bit of credibility. And I know a lot of you folks who've lived here a long time just kind of chuckle at that and go, yeah, good luck with that, buddy. But right now things are going pretty well, so we're pretty optimistic.
So I think, first of all, also, in addition to the negotiations, the point being the positive points that we can be discussed, obviously, is the past dues. But there are apparently other cases that are involved against OGI that we've apparently gotten some favorable rulings on independently from the PH. But wondering how that settlement and payment possibility might come down, and if that might not be a added negotiating point in the settlement, Brian, for example.
So, Guy, are you saying that there have been individual lawsuits lodged against OGI that have been victorious outside of the PH as well?
Yes.
Interesting. Okay. And legally, I don't think we could mix the two, but what I'm hearing you say is there might be an opportunity for maneuver or a little bit of latitude for negotiation in that. Is that what you're saying?
Making Carlos aware of that possibly would make it maybe better to negotiate.
If there are other wins against OGI, I would sure like to know about them as well, just as a homeowner, not necessarily as a board member. I have not heard of very many, clear-cut victories, and it would be good to hear. So, and they're not my business. I mean, there's a certain privilege to, that kind of stuff. So I wouldn't even know who to ask, Guy. But
well, just something about.
Okay, guys, I'm sorry,
good
but I'm already 18 minutes
over. 18 minutes over.
Yeah.
All right.
So, if you have any other questions, send me an email or whatever you need. I'm up for it. Tomorrow is the meeting at 8 o'clock in the morning. Yes.
I
gonna
do
be on
have
it?
one question maybe that you might be able to help us with also, Carlos, and that is an independence. And Brian, you know what I'm referring to here, where if we have an attorney representing the association, if they had previously been involved with a lawsuit against the PH, are they independent? And can they represent the association?
I will have to study the case very carefully, and I would not like to comment on that in this exact moment. I need to go, and that's going to be a very profound situation.
Yeah.
Yes, Susan. Tomorrow I'm going to be in the meeting, in the HOA meeting, in case you need any question about PH or about any decision we're going to make. Just to be like a support for the board of directors and the HOA.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you for your time, Carlos. We really appreciate it.
Bye bye.
All right, everyone. If you guys have follow-on questions, please send them to us. If you think of something tonight, we'll get it to him and we'll get answers back to everyone.
Thank you.
Brian, I think my only question is, the meeting is for sure not at the youth center. It is totally on video.
It is. We did not reserve a physical space, Arlene, because of the incoming wedding and all of the prep going on.
Right.
So,
No, but it's just the first notification said it was there, so I just wanted to verify. Thank you.
I think that was that Tucasa's notification. I think that might have
Yes.
been a holdover. Yeah, I think that was a copy and paste error, Arlene.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
And Brian,
Thanks all.
for your quick attention to Carlos's matter. I do appreciate that. Thank you.
No problem. I mean, it's a serious matter. We needed to talk about it. So thanks everybody for hanging in, and thanks for your thoughtful questions. And this is the kind of meetings I like running. This was really great. Thank you very much.
It was very well. Thank you.
Take care.